Welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for joining. If you've been a longtime subscriber, thank you for your continued support. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Dustin, and this week we're doing the second part of a two-part episode with the amazing glassblower Pyro. We put together what Pyro calls a Tripdocycler. It's super interesting. It's got a triple penetration and recycling functions, so you guys should definitely check this out. I think it may be the most complex piece we've put up on the channel so far, so make sure you check out part number 1 as well. I wanted to thank Far Out Facets for coming and teaching such an amazing workshop last time. Thank you so much. That was great. For those of you guys interested in studying faceting or kind of getting your hands wet a little bit, he made it seem so simple with only about $500 or $700 worth of equipment you could buy on Amazon. So it seems way more in reach than I initially thought before I watched him work. So you guys should check that out at revereglass.com on the school. Also, we have Enjoy and Prosper Glass coming up. It's a lathe class. It's going to be really interesting. Make sure you check out his Instagram, Enjoy and Prosper Glass, and send him a message. Let him know you're interested in the class. Go to the website and sign up. We'll give 25% off to the next 3 people that sign up using the coupon Enjoy Glass. Just put that in the promo code area and you'll get 25% off that class coming up. If you haven't checked out the online school yet, make sure you head over there and check it out. It's an awesome community. If you're interested in learning to blow glass or want more interaction as you're learning to blow glass, please check that out. It's a community. There's a lot of aspects of it that are free. And then if you want more in-depth training, we also offer that as well. Before we get into the video, I want to thank Mountain Glass Arts for their continued support. They do an amazing job getting everybody in the community what they need, helping educate people about what tools and things are available for certain projects. They have such a wide variety of tools and equipment available that you could really do anything in these videos and much, much more just by checking out what they have on their website. So check out mountainglassarts.com. If you want to check out this piece in person, go to Hotbox 408 down in San Jose. They have it on display. Check it out. It was an amazing piece. One more thing before we get into the studio, guys. Last week, I had the honor of being on the podcast Connected in Glass. It was a lot of fun. Go check that out. It's called Connected in Glass. You could get it on Apple Podcasts. It's free. It's about a 30-minute long interview. I really enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to that podcast as well. All right, you guys, let's get into the studio and let's get this piece finished. I really like the way it's coming out. I can't wait to share it with you guys. All right, you guys, welcome back. Super stoked for this next part of the construction of this piece. How you doing, Pyro?
I'm doing well.
Good. So first thing we're gonna work on is are you making some down tubes? What are you making here?
It looks like I'm either making the uptakes or the drains. So I'm pulling down some tubing for the plumbing for all the different flow elements.
When you were figuring out this design and, just for flow elements in general, what would you suggest to people maybe with a little bit less experience than you who are trying to come up with a piece or work on the flow, of the water? Like what did you do to learn those techniques?
I made a lot of mistakes. Yeah, mostly I experimented with the flow dynamics of the liquid and the smoke and made little changes to the diameter of my pipes, whether it be the drain or the uptakes, and I kind of found a sweet spot where there's a certain point where you can balance the updraw and the drain, and you want to get your flow just right between those. And when it comes to recyclers, that's kind of one of the central tricks that I figured out is that balance between your uptake flow and your drain flow. If your drain flow is too big, you'll draw up your drain instead of just drawing up your uptakes. And so the whole trick to getting that balance is getting that flow rate right. So usually like a 2-to-1 ratio is what I do for uptake versus drain. So whether that be 2 draw up tubes or a larger tube for the uptake versus the drain.
Is this the first recycler that you like, the first design that you messed around with, or did you have previous iterations before this?
Um, Before this, I did one that I called a peak line for a couple years. That was essentially the same thing, just with one donut for the intake. And then I looked at one of my old designs and realized I could do that triple donut stack that I did years ago and just do it a little bit differently now. So basically, what I did was incorporate the two more donuts as the uptake for the recycler function. And so that was kind of how the piece evolved. It went from a slightly less complicated design to figure out a way that I could turn one of my older designs into a recycler and get the 3 donut stack. So on this piece, one donut is the intake and the other 2 donuts are the uptake.
And that previous one was the first one. Did you make some in clear or anything when you were starting off, or did you just go straight into color working stuff?
Oh gosh. I mostly did color work. I mean, there are probably a couple clear ones out there, but I think the first ones I did were in color, and the function was moderate, and so I did a few clear ones just to practice. But I really think I just did like 1 or 2 clear ones, and then what I did was just kept putting them in and out of the kiln and making adjustments until I got it just how I wanted it.
I'd love to hear a little bit about the early days when you got started blowing glass. Like how did you find it? What was the industry like at the time? Give us and some people who are new to the industry a little bit of history from your perspective.
Oh man, it was the Wild West, as someone said.
Right?
Yeah, there really wasn't. There was an industry, but it was very closed door. Also, I was really young getting into it, so there was even an extra amount of doors that weren't open to me because, people were like, "Look, kid, you can't come in this head shop." I'm like, "Well, I'm a 17-year-old glassblower," and they're like, "Yeah, that's the problem." So. Yeah, I think for me in the early industry, I spent most of my time just in the studio, playing around and working on figuring things out. And I struggled with being able to sell to shops for my first couple years because I was a minor. So here I was making adult products, and I was underage.
So you started when you were 17?
16, actually.
What year was that?
98.
98, 16. Wow. How did you manage to start at 16 years old in 1998?
My brother had started setting up a studio in his barn with some nationals and an old Crest kiln, top loader, ceramic kiln. And yeah, he took me over and I got to see Darby working and I fell in love with it.
Right.
And I decided that I didn't want to go to culinary school anymore. I wanted to become a glassblower. And I saved up some money and I hit up my my pops for $500 for glassblowing tools and equipment, and didn't have that great of a relationship with it at the time. So he said, tell me what you need and I'll send you those tools. I'm not going to send you any money.
Well, young guys, there's still a lot to learn. I can remember those years, and
there was, I was a kid, right?
A lot to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm always going to be grateful though, that he sent me that equipment. Cause had he sent me that money, I might not have spent it as well. Yeah. So, I ended up having, an early start into the industry where I found something that I had fell in love with and started being able to make real simple wrap and rake spoons at a young age, and my brother, who was a little bit older, was able to sell them. So you know, my work was being, it was just basic production wrap and rake spoons initially.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the thing at the time, 1995, 6, 7, 8, 9, even, I mean, that was, I remember there was a few years, at least 2 years of me blowing glass before I had even seen anything with inside out work on it. It was
Right.
all outside. And then one day, like, I saw this guy and I was like, oh my God, how did you get that stuff on the inside? And obviously he wouldn't tell me because it was so secretive at the time. And so
Right.
I just tried to think about it. And so what I did was I cut and flip. I was like, okay, this must be, I was like, this must be how to do it. So I did cut and flip for like 2 years straight until somebody showed me how to flare and things like that. And I was like, I got the job done, learned how to cut and flip super early on. But yeah, man, there was a time when all that outside work, that was the thing. That was all that there was.
Isn't that funny though? Because like I learned to cut and flip early like that too. Because when someone was like, "Oh yeah, that's an inside out pipe,"
Yeah.
so we'd be like, "Okay, well, so how do you make that? We just turn it inside out, right?"
Yeah, exactly.
And so like our brains were like, "Yeah, just turn it inside out." So we try to do that, and we're like, "Well, that doesn't look like that. That's cool, but that's definitely not what they did. This is really difficult."
Yeah.
But we did conquer the cut flip early.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just was talking with a friend the other day about, who's masterful, who's just started incorporating cut flips into their tech. And I was just like thinking back about how we were doing that because we didn't know how to make inside out spoons, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see like the development in the industry and the techniques. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this project is like showing just the vast variety of techniques, because back early on it was so limited, it was so little technique, and everyone was just trying to figure out anything, anything that they could do, and now it's so vast, right? There's so much.
Yeah, so here I'm doing one of the more complex welds on this piece, bringing the what I call at this point like the spider uptake. So it's the double donut uptakes, bringing those and making that double weld on either side of the main can. And as you can see, I have some complex bridges there to hold everything in place.
Yeah, it's coming together good. I like the way that it looks with all the arms kind of mid piece, everything coming out. It looks really, really wild. What do you do about maintaining the heat like that? How much time do you put in the kiln or Bunsen or?
Well, I've gone through a bunch of different evolutions of how I do my assembly. At this point with those, I've kind of figured out making all of the largest constituent parts that I can and putting them together, in segments like that, so that I end up principally having, doing all my small build and all my small parts into those main segments and doing the construction there, where it's essentially I have my intake donut that goes on to the main can, then my double uptake donuts, and then my drain can. And each one of those has a bunch of complex parts that are put into it.
Mm-hmm.
But, I figured out this order of operations to assemble the main the main 3 or 4 components all as one process, and it saves me a lot of struggle. Here it looks like I'm working on what's going to become the disc for the back of the piece, the decorative disc that really ties it together.
How many sections is that? 3, 4?
I think that one's just 3. It's there's a the Carmeline section, your wigwag, and then a small section of reticello in there.
Do you always use the Marver to flatten your discs like you did on the part of the can there?
Of late, it's been it really depends on what what the piece is that I'm working on. But yeah, I've been doing that a lot more in recent years, learning how to use the L Marver to speed up my shaping process and really create those discs.
Also the lip wraps too. I know that one of the things that you showed last time in the video was a really unique way to make a lip wrap, and I noticed in this video you're doing a different way. Do you use them for different things, or did you switch to the way of just wrapping a stringer?
Yeah, I mean it alternates, but for the most part, yeah. With this one, I think it was mostly just because I wasn't going for a lot of encalmo stacks, so I didn't have the necessity of variation in the sizes of my encalmos. In the last video I did, with the Pylog video, I was doing consistent pinstripe encalmos alternated to thicker bands of color, and so in order to create that consistency and create those bands of color alternating to the strings, I essentially was just doing that press and stamp technique where I press a little flat end and then blow that onto the opening. And it looks like what I'm doing here is I ran out of sections for wigwags, and it was probably in the wee hours towards the end of the project, and I had to spin up just one wigwag to try to match your pattern, just for one of the sections in there.
Yeah, totally. I think we made a bunch, and I think you said you needed one more.
Yeah, I was like really short, just the one tiny one. It was way late in the night, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just spin it up right now.
And this one was, what did you end up using this one for?
I think this one ended up going on the joint itself. So this is actually part of the ground joint point where you put your dabber.
If you guys who are watching the video, you want to check out this piece, I think it's on display at 408 Hotbox. Is that right?
Yeah, Hotbox 408 is their IG, and they're actually right near you in the Bay Area.
Yeah, so if you guys are local or in the area, go check it out, and you can see this piece there. Super cool. I love the way that this one turned out. I mean, the shape is unbelievable, and the colors. I really like these pastel-y kind of colors, personally.
Yeah, and if you're interested in seeing more of my work, Hotbox actually has a really good selection of my work this year. They've been really a great supporter.
As an artist, how do you find the stores that you want to work with?
That's a good question. Usually for me, trade shows, and I'm selective about who I work with on, their attitude and their interaction with the art itself. I kind of like to interact with shops that want to support artists and grow the community. So
what other places would you recommend that young artists find stores? Trade shows obviously is a good one.
Yeah, getting into Instagram is probably the best place to network and connect with artists and shops, and it's probably one of the best places for shops to connect with us, which is interesting. That's a whole new thing for me still, having been on there for a few years now. I felt like late to that game, and I'm still I'm still playing the Instagram catch up game where, I've got people that I taught 20 years ago that have, uh, 50,000 followers and such.
Yep, yep. That happens, right? That when you're in the industry and a teacher for a long time, and that's the biggest compliment that you can get
That's huge. I
as a
love it.
teacher.
Yeah, like it's always interesting when people are jealous of their students. You're like, no, no, no. Like I
Yeah,
am happy for these people. I
yep,
am so excited. The people that I taught are being successful. That means the world to me.
yep, yeah. It's amazing to see some of the people that have come through and have so many followers and so much notoriety in the industry, and thinking about when they were first in my studio or in your studio, and just
Well, I actually got to have a really lucky, fun interaction recently. I ran into Yashin,
uh-huh,
and the first thing he said to me was, "Hey, this was the guy who I got to make my first pipe on his torch."
uh-huh.
Just like, oh,
That's cool.
that's a long time ago, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's an amazing artist, and it was
No,
really
man, I can take no credit for what he's accomplished. Like I
no.
literally, I think I saw him 3 or 4 times in passing after that first chance that he got to work on my torch, make a pipe, and the stuff that he's produced is phenomenal. And the art
Unbelievable, right?
he is taught and the expanded on has just been amazing to see. So
Yep.
it's just it's cool to throw a little bit of sand in the bucket and watch what comes out.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think that his first classes that he taught were at my studio, and it was just so beautiful to see such a young pipe maker with so much talent sharing knowledge.
Right.
Yep, yep, yep. Making the joint here.
Yeah. So it looks like I'm getting my final shape on the ground joint area and popping out the hole in the side to get it ready to attach.
I think
Right here, I'm doing a cold seal onto
mhm.
the top of the joint and pulling the excess glass off the bottom. And then I'm going to pop the hole out and attach that using that cold seal as my bridge.
Yeah, that's a cool shape. And I think it matches the that shape a little bit as well.
Yeah, I like
Working-
to, match the ridges and kind of give that consistency of flow between my patterns. It's always been something that I strive for with my work is creating that consistent flow and tying the ends together, putting, wherever certain colors meet, they always have the same Incalmo connections, and
Mhm.
there are a lot of little subtle nuances.
So you're just heating it up and stretching it out to kind of even out that shape a little bit.
Yeah.
Little blow in there. Um, what about? I know that some people are curious, kind of like we demonstrate a lot about glassblowing here, but what other things are you passionate about in your life? Because I think being well-rounded also brings inspiration and ideas from other things that you love about hobbies or things you
Yeah.
like to do to be creative.
I mean, I'm actually an accomplished welder, woodworker, and cook. So those are all mediums that I enjoy.
How do you find do you balance? Do you still do those things? Do you balance it with the glass, or how does that work?
So I'm actually recently incorporating my metalwork specifically into glass, and I started working on some arcade cabinets
Hmm.
that are all steel frame with glass inlay, and then incorporate functional pieces that hang off the sides.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool. A little mixed media.
yeah, they were really fun. I made them for a glass blowing competition recently, and I think they overshadowed the pieces a little bit, but the
Uh-huh.
cabinets themselves are amazing, and I'm really excited to do more of them.
And what kind of food do you like to cook? Anything or
Oh,
specific kinds of
all kinds of
cuisines?
food. I actually, I, I do a lot of mostly Asian and Italian styles,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
but occasionally I like to dip into some Mediterranean foods and get to my roots.
I think that when somebody would look at this piece, like especially somebody who was kind of outside of the industry, they'd look at all these tubes and the connections and kind of be confused, like
Yeah,
what's going on here, you know?
it's a little complex. It's I think definitely one of the things that I've strived for in my career professionally as I advance is I there used to be a strong drive to make things and a big concern about them being copied.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of work for a lot of us to try to make proprietary things for many years, and I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the ways that I chose to go about that was to um, just make it difficult. So instead of trying to make something that was exceptionally proprietary, or saying, hey, that's my thing, don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
um, I decided to share my work with everyone and do things like this, and um, just make the work so difficult that you have to dedicate years to the craft to be able
Mm-hmm.
to recreate it. So I'm never really worried about competition. I'm just doing my thing.
If you guys watching it are gonna try to make this, that'd be great. Just tag Pyro or myself or both of us, and
Yeah,
yeah, we'd love to see your pieces that are influenced and inspired by this piece.
yeah. I definitely would love to see. I'm always stoked when people show me their attempts or their successes. I've had a couple people come up to me from the original video and show me the evolution of a piece that they now do because uh, they made a mistake trying to do that piece, and
Right.
it turned into one of their most popular production designs.
Isn't that funny how that happens sometimes? It's like the mistake kind of can lead to new designs or pieces, you know?
Yeah, so they were trying to make one of my Pylocks, and one of the parts broke, and they just used the remaining elements to turn it into a water piece, and then made that style kind of a consistent recurring theme, and now it's one of their most popular selling items.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How many sections do you think were made for this piece?
Man, I really wish I had counted, but I think if you're not including the double layers, we're somewhere close to 30.
Something like that, maybe more even, huh?
Maybe. I think yeah, it's I'd have to actually sit and look at the piece and count them, and then there's some stuff where you're like, is it two pieces? Because it's
Yeah.
overlayered, with the
Yeah,
reticello.
with the
Every one of those
Reticello, yeah.
sections is technically, one section over another. But no, you did really clean work on the reticello and consistent line work on your wigwags. So it's really nice to be able to put it together. Everything worked really smoothly.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I mean, especially coming from somebody with so much skill, it means a lot. Thanks.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Just take practice.
sometimes you get a section from someone and you're like, wow, did you work that in? It's like completely wrinkled.
Yeah.
Let me rework this and start over.
Yep. But yeah, it's for you guys watching, just starting off, like just remember that Pyro and I were right where you are at one point, and we hadn't touched glass, and our first stuff looked probably pretty similar to your first stuff, and it just takes practice for you guys. I mean, don't get discouraged. It's a difficult medium, and it just takes practice.
Yeah, that's for sure. So this is one of those areas where
Is this the East Jesus seal?
an East Jesus seal. I've actually had a lot of people ask me if I do Jesus seals there, and I've thought about it, and from time to time, I have. Frequently, what I've noticed for me works a little bit easier in the case of those specific ones is I'll just pop a small hole on either side and bring the two pieces together and make a small seal right there. But yeah, it really depends on what the pattern is that I'm bringing together. I'm bringing some pattern work together, if I'm bringing it color to color. In this case, I'm going from the carmeline to the carmeline, and it makes a pretty smooth transition for the seal, so you don't have to worry about it too much. And as you can see in here, like if I have to take a little tiny piece of glass out to clean up that weld, it's not the end of the world. You can see it smooths out really nicely.
And do you always work from have the blow tube on the bottom, or do you ever have the blow tube on the mouthpiece in this late stage?
That's a good point, or a good question. So generally at this stage, I have my blow tube on the bottom all the way through to finish, because your center of gravity is lower, and when you have the base out away from your hand, versus having the mouthpiece closer, what happens is the weight is shifted differently, so you're not dealing with the force of having all that weight out the end of on the end of the blowpipe. So it puts less strain on your wrists and your hands, and it makes it just a little bit easier to manipulate a larger piece.
Do you ever do like stretching or yoga like associated with the craft to, as we get older? I know we're both still pretty young. I mean, I'm 29. I think you're probably 29 too. And,
that's generous.
As we get older, I mean, what do you do? I jump on the trampoline and do some stretching, some yoga. I do like some hand stretches. Do you do anything for your body when you're making these big pieces?
Yeah, I actually I started in martial arts really young, and so a lot of that has stuck with me. And I do a lot of deep core stretching and a lot of different stretches that I picked up during martial arts and over the years, some Tai Chi type movements and some breathing exercises. And it's really important to keep your muscles and joints moving, because this work is, it's strenuous. It can be very taxing. There's Lee in there holding the marble, handing it to me. You get that one. Make this last connection.
And we have a marble like this for one of you guys. This is very similar to the marble. So make sure you comment on this video or the last video with Pyro, and we're going to ship one of these marbles out to one of you guys.
My caged opals.
Yeah.
I've been calling them.
All right, remove that punny. Looks like we're getting close here. I mean, what about late stage construction? Do you ever... I think for somebody who's just starting off doing complex pieces, I would emphasize kiln time and Bunsen work at this stage. What about you?
I definitely think that, as you're seeing me work here, I'm probably setting some bad examples. If you aren't really, really fast at making your moves, some of the things that I'm doing could potentially lead to a lot of problems. Let's be honest. If you're not, I think part of it here is, as we're seeing it in the video, we just jumped from the kiln to my hand.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like, I just finished, welding one marble in, then I put it in the kiln for 30 minutes, and then I pull that out and jump right into the next marble. And, as we watch it in the video, it almost looks like I just went from one marble to the next with no stopping. But the reality is in the case of this final assembly, I'm taking like about 15 to 20 minute break in between each one of those marbles to give the whole piece a good amount of time to equalize. after
Yes.
out of the kiln for so long.
Yeah, super important, you guys. For those of you who are watching and don't have a ton of experience with glass, there's a lot of kiln time in between a lot of these steps. I recommend 10 to 15 minutes in the kiln after each step as a safety net for when you're starting off. And then when you know the parameters, you can bend the rules a little bit. But yeah, kiln time.
Got to know the rules before you can break it.
Right? So, I mean, last step, we're removing the blow piece here, and there it is in the tongs. Your grip must be pretty strong. You don't want to drop it, right?
Oh yeah, this is probably one of the most precarious steps in the process every time, where you're, one small slip up could be the end of the piece, and we're here just trying to wrap it up and get those last little moves in.
All right, you guys. So this is the finished piece. I'm super proud of this. It was an honor and such a fun time working with Pyro. But yeah, here's the finished piece for you guys. What do you think, Pyro?
I'm exceptionally happy with how this piece came out. It's like you said, it was a pleasure. It's been this was a fun one to get through the process and figure out all the little details to put in there, and I feel like the colors really came together nicely.
Totally. So yeah, for you guys, just comment on this video or the last one, and we'll send you a marble that Pyro made. It's incredible. So one of you guys are going to be very lucky. I want to thank you so much, Pyro, for coming, and I want to thank all you guys for watching it and hanging out with us. And I can't wait to work with you again, man.
Thanks a lot, Dustin. I look forward to it.
All right.
Take care.
Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining Pyro and I to make that piece. It was such an honor having him. He's a wonderful person and an artist to work with, and I really can't wait till he comes back and hangs out and we get to make another thing and show you guys what we made. All right, I got a few questions. The first one is from Lazy Hound Genetics, and they're asking, how does a beginning artist find their style or their signature style, their voice? I think it's a really important question for both a beginning artist and any artist. Finding your voice and your signature and your expression is so key to what we're doing. I think that looking within yourself and finding the things that you're passionate about that are unique to you and draw from that place that's yourself only, because everybody else is already taken, so you might as well just be yourself. That way you can find what you're most passionate about and express that, and it will shine through and be different than what everybody else's voice is, because it'll be just you. Kevin Sparks and HBlock00 are both asking questions about initial studio setup, where to find supplies, where to find a space. How do you research that kind of stuff? And for getting oxygen, you could look for a welding supply shop. They will definitely be selling oxygen. You can also generate your own oxygen by getting an oxygen. You can also generate your own oxygen by getting an oxygen concentrator and just using a Lynx torch. That should be fine. You could get a couple oxygen you can also get a couple of oxygen concentrators and use a phantom torch. So there's a lot of different ways that you can approach the oxygen situation, but definitely a welding supply would be your first bet and easiest to get. Just get some K-tanks. You might want to tell them that you're a welder, because not all welding shops like glass blowers. The other question that somebody's asking about is how to find a space, especially if you're in an apartment. Definitely don't blow glass in your apartment. The space that you want to find is an industrial space or a commercial space, and sometimes there's shared artist space in cities and towns as well. So you could check out to see if there's a shared artist building or rent an industrial space. You could use a garage at somebody else's house and rent that. Make sure you look into what the laws are in your city and town around blowing glass. And also, once you find an industrial space or a space that you think you'd like to blow glass in, make sure you tell the landlord what you're doing. It's always best to be upfront 100%, and that way you don't risk having to move in a moment's notice. If you guys have more questions about studio setup and want a little bit more in-depth connection on that, please check out revereglass.com and use the chat in the bottom right, and we'll help you answer any questions that you may have about initial studio setup and what to look for, etc. All right, you guys, so the last question is from Greenshire Glass. They noticed that they recently got a Bunsen burner and there's a screw setting on it that raises and lowers the Bunsen. And what's that for? And how do you set it? It's a good question. That screw setting allows more and less air into the flame. The less air that you have into your flame, to a certain degree, it's an arc, but the less air that you have, the flame is a little bit cooler. You rise it up, the flame becomes a little bit hotter. You'll notice that because initially the flame is just yellow and it's just a propane flame. And as you raise that up, it becomes bluer and therefore has more air in it. And on the Bunsen burner, we're using air and propane mix as opposed to on our torch where we're using an oxygen and propane mix. I mean, it really depends on what you're doing and what kind of work you want to heat up, but that's your temperature range. So you may want to play around with it. You don't want it too hot. You don't want it too cold. Play somewhere in the middle and then adjust it and fine tune it to whatever kind of style work that you use and whatever piece that you're making. Thanks, Greenshire Glass. Thank you guys all for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. I'm so stoked the way that this piece came out. Thank you again, Pyro. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you soon in another video.